So first thing we want to do is make sure our settings is turned off. I do have it plugged in, but it doesn't matter at this point. Okay. What I want to do is first is add my auger, and the newer ones actually seat in the almost reverse manner. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get it in there. Then I'm gonna put my mixing arm on, and basically this is going to poke through the front of the unit. Then I'm gonna take this bushing, anybody can see that better here, is I'm going to place it between these two screws, get it centered up on there, and then turn this 90 degrees. This can only go on one way, and then when you turn it 90 degrees is the locking part where it doesn't have this notch out. And then I'm simply just going to thread these two screws on so this thing doesn't pop out. Everything's secure. Get a little better look. Then I want to find whatever die I'm going to use, and I want to get that seated in my collar. And how you know you've done it correctly is the front edge of the collar, make sure I'm viewing this right, is poking through. You can ruin one of these dies if you put this in backwards and try to push pasta through the front, and it will thread on. And basically what you'll do is you'll push out these insets with the shapes in it. So you want to make sure the head is poking through the collar. If there's nothing poking through, you've done it wrong. Then we're going to simply thread this on, and I've done this every which way known to man, and I've poured flour in without the collar and die. I poured flour in without the mix arm. I poured flour in without the auger. All of that just forces you to pull all the flour out and start all over again. So make sure you get everything assembled. There's 3 parts: mix arm, auger, die with the collar on it. Now that it's all assembled, we shall mix pasta. So the baseline recipe, and the newer machines have the recipe actually on the side. In layman's terms, this is 4 pounds, number 1 mil semolina flour. And assuming I have all my weights and measurements correct, my recipe will work. 4 pounds of flour, and I have 20 ounces of water. 32% hydration ratio really is where you want to be at across the board. And it doesn't really matter what type of dry or wet, the hydration needs to be at 32% roughly. Big thing you want to make sure you're very aware of and be conscious about before you start this machine is that in the back here, off, mix, extrude. You want to be in mix when you first start, makes sense, adding the water. If it's on extrude and you press start and you don't have any water in here, there's a good chance you're just gonna ruin this machine, because basically it will push everything out the back and ruin the motor. And when you get this, you're gonna see all sorts of, if you've not used this, there's all sorts of stickers and labels stating that if you do not run this without water in the set hydration, you will cause catastrophic damage. Some of the newer machines might have, I think the newer ones have a sensor in them that once it senses that the flour is not hydrated, it will not run. But I'm old school. I'm gonna make sure I'm on mix. Click that guy over in the back. Press start. I'm just gonna feather water slowly. Close the lid. There's a little wire safety catch right here. Get this guy up over the lip. So as that flour is gaining more and more water, it's going to start getting lumpy. You don't want those lumps to pop up, knock the top off. There's a magnetic sensor. If you open this, it's going to stop. Close all back up, press start again. All right. So one thing I do, maybe 2/3 of the way through mixing, is I'll stop it. I'll grab my bench, little scraper, and I'll kind of pull everything away from the edge. And then I'll kind of go along these little blades, these prongs on the mix arms, and trying to, because sometimes, depending on the temperature of the flour, the water, it can all stick to the metal. Sometimes clump up. But another thing I do is I don't pour everything in, then wait. As I get towards the end, I really reserve maybe a couple ounces. Because really getting to the right hydration for me is kind of a sight and a feel test. Still got a little bit, at least a couple more ounces of water left. One of the things is you can underhydrate a bit and your mix will be good, but if you overhydrate and you start seeing a bunch of balls and starts looking like golf ball size clumps of flour in there, you can't add more flour to bring that back out. And what you're honestly trying to go for is a loose, wet sand consistency that's going to consistently feed the auger and extrude nicely for you. The wetter the dough, and you get more, larger clumps, is it's just going to bounce around towards the bottom and not feed well. And you're probably just going to end up throwing that away. So what you're kind of looking for is the ability to clump this up and then break it up again. And I'm almost there. And I also, when I break it up, I kind of want to see, I don't know if anybody can see this, almost like pea-sized streusel. And for me, that's how I know I'm kind of where I want to be at. And I might drizzle an ounce more water in. As you can see, I've just got a little bit left. think I'm good. Okay. So now that my mix is ready, I'm going to switch over to extrude. And I'm going to make sure my extruder is kind of kicking off over the front of this cart, because this is going to be my landing space. Press start. And if you're using a die that has mushy pasta in it, you're going to get a little bit of mush coming out of the gate. And what I do is I let it run out for a little bit, because down the auger is where a lot of the drier flour that might not have gotten mixed up is sitting. So I want to kind of get more of a smoother consistency. The cutting wheel. And the cutting wheel, you know, I always check to make sure it's got spring tension. This is a spring-loaded knife. I always want to make sure the knife is nice and clean. And I simply set these two set screws up top. And what you want to do is, you know, there's really no right or wrong way to do this on the AEX18. But you don't want to have it pushed all the way forward. I tell everybody, push it as far as you can and then back it off maybe 1/8 of an inch. Because the sweet spot is, you want this to have enough tension, but you don't want it to, if you have it too tight, it will groove into that brass die. Take your guitar jack and you're going to go over here to the side and plug it in. And then simply just press extrude. And this is my variable speed control. Is get a little bit of pasta coming out. And I'm gonna, the slower, I can go fast or I go slow. But you really kind of want to eyeball. Slower you get, the longer noodle you get. So I'm looking for, you know, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. I go a little bit slower. And as this is coming out, shake your cart every now and again. You want to get these all nice and spread thin. Pause it here.